Hello everyone, welcome to the video. Today what I'll do, I'll recap on videos from 2018, so tips that I gave throughout all my videos, and if you want you can go back and check these out. I'll go through small topics that don't really make a whole video, okay, and I'll add in some extra tips for workflow as well. There's a lot of information in here, so I hope you can hang on till the end. I hope you'll enjoy the video, okay? Remember to get the link for free samples. It will show up in the middle of the video somewhere. Okay, and if you're ready, here we go. Okay, we all know our track mutes. We can mute our tracks with the pads or with the screen. A really fun way of interacting with your music. But if you do it in the channel mixer, and if you go to MIDI tracks, you'll still have your MIDI tracks available to mute. So same thing as in a track mute, but now you also have your pads to trigger samples. So more flexibility in case you enjoy using track mutes. So in the track mute section, you also have the quantization for the track mutes and the time division that you want. So if you put it to 2 bars, it gives you plenty of time to mute and unmute, and you can go to the main screen and trigger other samples as well. So flexibility for live performances, for jamming. You can prepare when the drop is going to come by using those 2 bars. It would be good to have more bars here. You trigger maybe 4 bars, it would give you more time to prepare for the drop or something like that. In this case, we can go up to 2 bars, and what happens here is that you can do things like this. So it basically prepares the unmuting or muting of tracks while you are on the pads, hitting on the pads or creating some sort of passage. A quick tip, if you want to transfer a slice from non-destructive to pad parameters, you can just go into the sample edit screen, go into your program, press shift and transform that slice into pad. There are reasons why you want to use pad parameters versus non-destructive. You can check some of my videos out on that. Okay, I had a question about, can you route your metronome to another output? And yes, you can do that. You can say that the metronome can be routed out to a different output, 3 or 4. You can put it to a mono as well right there. You can also put the audition of samples to another output. That's when you are in the browser. This audition here, when you go from one sample to the other, this is now going to the outputs 1 and 2, but you can route that to another output just by going to the preferences, general, audition, and there you can route it to a different output as well. So in case you're working with a really long sequence, you should use locate. Let's say that I'm working on this sequence right here with 32 bars, and for some reason I'm working between bar number 11 and bar number 15. I can set that bar to a locate function, so double tap there. I can put it on to number 1, so say set. If you saw that, it turned into bar number 11. So now anywhere I am in the sequence, if I want to jump to that specific point of the sequence, I can just go into the locate and press on the 1, and there we go. We're right there. Another question that I get is about converting the song to a sequence. And when people convert it to a sequence, then they get these tracks that are playing different sound. So they get some conflicting sounds within the sequence. And that happens because when you put all the sequences together in song mode, the programs that you have in track number 1 need to be the same program in track number 1 in the other sequence. To better explain this, I have 2 sequences right here. I have this one, and then I have this one. Each one only has 2 tracks recorded. Sequence number 10 has samples in track number 1 and the beat track number 2. Okay, sequence number 11 has the beat in track number 1, samples on the track number 2. Alright, I'm going to put these 2 sequences in the song mode. Okay, so sequence number 10, sequence number 11. I'm going to convert these two. It's going to go to sequence number 5. We can use that sequence, do it. Now, if we go to sequence number 5, let's hear the results. So obviously there's a problem there because track number 1 has a drum program, and on the other sequence, track number 1 has the sample program. Obviously, when the song mode converts these 2 sequences into a whole sequence, there's going to be a problem between these 2 tracks because they don't contain the same samples, they don't contain the same program. Okay, here in the browser, we're going to talk about these 4 folders that you can assign to a specific place in your directory, in your hard drive. And these are like shortcuts into a specific place inside your hard drive. Well, the way to do it is to choose the place that you want to. So in this case, I'm going to choose drum samples, okay? And I'll press Shift and I'll press number 2. So each time that I now want to get to that file, I'll just press number 2 and it takes me there. So all you need to do is go to the place that you want. Like it can be this one here. Go inside it and press Shift and hit the folder that you want. And now you've created a shortcut into that folder, okay? Pressing Shift and Note Repeat unlocks the Note Repeat. It's good for you guys that like to make trap beats. This is really useful for you guys. Okay, it just locks the Note Repeat in place. And then you can also use the cue links to affect the pitch at the same time that you're doing the note repeat. Okay, so here we have another creative way of using loops inside the MPC. This is something that I have fun with. Sometimes I like to use this technique. Okay, what is it? Basically, I have just these 3 loops here. Now you can do a lot more if you have more loops and loops, the same loops with different effects and stuff. But I'm just to simplify everything here in the video, I'm using 3 loops here: the drums, sample, bass. Now I'm not going to use the play or anything. There will be no play here. What I'm using is the internal clock of the MPC. Now if you lock it, if you go Shift no repeat, as I said, you'll lock the no repeat in place. And now the MPC is locked with the tempo, which means that the no repeat will work, right? So if it works, it means that we have a clock running inside it. I just used the MPC this way without using the play start. So and you're never really out of time because you're always locked to the clock inside the MPC. Now, if you have a lot more pads here with different effects for each loop and everything, and this one's starting on a kick, but if you have the same loop on there starting with a snare, and you can create crazy things like that. So cool tip right there. Now, some people want to know how you can sample straight to a pad. That's really simple. You just go pad tap or pad hold. You can choose one of these two, and you can just tap on the pad. And once you tap on the pad, what is coming in will be recorded straight onto the pad that you tapped on. And obviously that will go to the program that's highlighted on the main screen as well. So in this case, I have this program, but I can change it to another program. Let's go here to maybe create a new program number 2. So I'm going to put a sample on there. Okay. I can just tap it, and once I tap it, it starts to record. Stop it, and it's done. That's how you record straight onto a pad. So we have our normal way of recording our melodies, our bass lines, even our samples and our drums. Another way of recording, let's say, the bass or any melody is by using the step sequencer. It's also a creative way of doing it. So let me just erase everything that's inside. Let me go to the step sequencer. Let's say I want to record 8 notes. Do it. Pad select. So you choose the pad. Let's say this one. And that one. Then you jump to the next bar and no. Not that one. That one. And so on. So you can create a melody this way in the step sequencer, which I think it's actually a very interesting way of finding the note and then placing it on the grid. It can actually become a very useful workflow to do it this way. Then another way of inputting notes as well is by using the step editor or the list editor. We have a function here that's the auto advance step record. When you have it turned on and you press on the overdub, if you press a note, it gets inputted into the sequencer, into the grid. Okay, you need to know where you are in the grid as well. And then a note will be inputted into the grid, right? So this is another way that many people that own synthesizers have this workflow as well. And I was asked by a student of mine the other day how to do it. And, even though I explained to people that this isn't the workflow that most MPC users use to input notes, to record notes on the grid, I had to explain to him that, yeah, you can do that workflow in here as well. But, it's much easier to do it on the grid, the normal way that everyone records. But one of the good things I find that this is really useful for is for chord progressions. So you can find the chord you want and then just input that chord. And that chord will be put into the grid. If you have the plate head right there, you can go into the list editor, find a chord that you like, and then just input that. So I think it's very useful for chord progressions. If you're trying to find a voicing for your chord and then you find it, instead of just going in recording everything, you can just come here to the list editor, input your chord right there. So very useful. Into some of you that don't really have a background on music theory, if you're trying to find ways of creating chords on your pad, there's really an easy way for you to create chords with your pads just by giving the rule of the 2 plus 3 or 3 plus 2. So when you press on a pad, you give 2 pads ahead and then 3. This is a minor chord. Now if you go 3, 1, 2, 3, and then press, and then 2, press, this is a major, right? 2, 3 will give you a minor, 3, 2 will give you a major. Any pad, right? This one, 1, 2, 3, press this one, 1, 2, there. That's a major. 1, 2, and then 3. That's a minor. So you can look at major and minor chords that way. Let's look at the punch in as well. This is a very useful feature. So if we double tap there on the counter, okay, we'll have the in. So you can say that I want to start recording between bar number 2 or between bar number 3 and 4. Now, once you do that, if you go to the grid, you'll see that now we have a red line. It means that even though we can have the recording on, if you touch a pad, it will not record until it's inside that section that we selected. So that's the punch in. And then automatically it stops recording. So that's the punch in. Now that we are playing with a key group, also good to know, if you're trying to find the middle of the keyboard, that's in this pad right there. So that's D13. That's C3 in the middle of the keyboard. Okay. Now if you're working with the X, it's much easier. If you're working with Renaissance, it's much easier. But if not, if you're working with the live and the touch, touching on that icon there, it's much easier for you to actually work with your filters, you know, just by pressing on that function. So that's that small icon. Sometimes I try, because the Q-Link is on the filter or something, what I do is I try to move, but sometimes it's hard to get to that A there, right? So the easiest way is just to touch on that icon, and now you have full access to the envelope there. Much easier to work this way. So in case you also wondering how you can put several tracks to record at the same time, just a quick tip: shift down, 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 down. Now you've armed 4 tracks at the same time. Obviously you can choose the input that you want right there. Now another way of editing pads simultaneously is by using this icon at the top. So current, you're only editing the pad that you touch on. If you press multiple, you can select multiple pads to edit at the same time, or all, you'll be editing all the pads inside the program at the same time. Now there's an easy way to select multiple just by pressing the shift and selecting the pads you want. Okay, so if you go shift and select these 3 pads, now you'll be editing these 3 pads at the same time. So if you change the cutoff point, okay, that's it. If you want to get out of multiple, that's pretty quick. You don't need to go and access that and then choose. It's just easier to do it this way. Okay. Okay, so I'll try to explain this as best as I can. When you have a pad, that's the velocity right there. When you get past a point, if you hit it, it won't trigger because you're hitting it too hard, right? So you have, it's telling that past a point, it won't trigger because it won't allow you to trigger that hard, okay? So that's the velocity end. Velocity start is the other way around. Past a point where you hit it too soft, it won't trigger. You have to hit it hard for it to trigger, right? So if you put it all the way to 127, the only velocity that it accepts for this layer is 127, so it's full velocity. Any other velocity besides 127 doesn't work. All right, so now if we go here to the modulation, we have these 3 types of plays for the layers. So the one is the velocity, determines if the sample will be triggered or not relating to the velocity. Randomness, all types of velocity work within random. Soft velocities, hard velocities, and then the cycle, which is cycling between layers, right? So this layer, it's restricted to velocity. So the velocity is the one that says whether or not the sample will be triggered. We can design, we can handcraft a beat repeat with this. So have a look there. I have a lot of snares played on the track, right? If I have it on velocity, only the hits that are 127 will play. Okay, now if I change it to randomness, I can create that beat repeat effect. Now this isn't much a beat repeat effect, but you can create beat repeat effects with this. You can get creative with this technique here, okay?